My name is Gabe Zollner. If you saw some of my recent videos, I had suggested that I think it's imperative that members of Congress get tested. They get tested both by a doctor physically and by a doctor mentally. You know, when you have someone like the minority speaker, you know, Pelosi, well, she was born in 1940, so that makes her, what, 73, 74 years old? And she's been at the public trough for 32 years. So here's another one that is totally clueless as to what goes on in the real world because the checks just keep coming, you know what I mean? Now, she obviously is slipping the cheese, is going off the cracker in her head as well, because she was quoted as saying that she believes that people have a right to the First Amendment and therefore they should be able to keep their arms. You know, their weapons. Nancy, the First Amendment is freedom of speech and freedom of assembly and freedom of expression. It is not the one that you confuse with the Second Amendment. So there's a perfect sign that, you know, the cheese is sort of sliding off the cracker. And the other comment that she made is Washington does not have a spending problem. Well, she doesn't have a spending problem because she's a multi-millionaire. You know, the insider trading scam that they pull off. Plus, you know, she was on a committee where, you know, her and her husband bought apartment buildings in downtown San Francisco. So she gets on appropriation committee and says, you know what, we need to run a rail line down through the waterfront district, you know, bring more traffic down to that part of the city. Well, the rail line just happens to go in front of, you know, the buildings. When anyone has a building that has public access within 2 blocks, the value jumps dramatically, up about 150%. So, I mean, that's what these people all do. They sit in Congress and they try to figure out ways to scam so they can increase their wealth. How do you think the majority of them are multi-millionaires? They didn't do it through hard work. How? They did it through scams. Yeah. And they did it through contributions. They did it from favors. Like I think John Boehner made close to, what, 2.8 million on pharmaceutical stock. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I don't think it's ever going to change because there's these bozos that vote on the laws, and they're sure not going to vote on a law to have them evaluated for their mental competence, or in her case, incompetence. Another guy that's, I think, the cheese is sliding off the cracker is, you know, the guy from Nevada. Yeah. His daddy, and I don't mean to make fun of this, and I think it's pretty sad, but Harry Reid's father committed suicide when Harry Reid was, I think, 32, and his father was like 56. Yeah. So there's obviously a certain amount of mental instability running in that family and in that gene pool, you know what I mean? And he should also, well, they all should. A guy like McCain, who doesn't understand that the National Defense Authorization Act is unconstitutional. His buddy Carl Levine. I mean, these old war horses, they got to be sent out to pasture, you know what I mean? They really don't know what they're doing anymore. Well, they do know what they're doing. They're destroying the country. And they're allowing this usurper to run free reign. You know what I mean? He does anything he wants. Anyway, it's pretty crazy. And they need to be tested, both physically and mentally. They probably won't, but they absolutely need to be tested. What do you think?